The galaxy is on the brink of war, a forbidden union between a human and an alien princess carrying the impossible, an heir that could change everything. As the royal fleet closes in, their world teeters on the edge of destruction. The king will stop at nothing to preserve his empire, but the child they carry is the symbol of hope and revolution. With time running out, Jace and Azara must defy everything they've ever known to fight for the future they've chosen. But can love truly conquer the Empire's fear? The clock is ticking. Will they escape, or will the king's wrath tear them apart? Stay tuned. The battle for the future begins now. If you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. The crystalline spires of the Etherian Palace pierced the violet sky of Nexus Prime. Their translucent surfaces shimmered, catching the light of the 3 moons that hung overhead. Robin Gyllenhaal stood at attention in his midnight black-powered armor, his eyes scanning the palace grounds. The former Earth Special Forces operative, now a royal guard of the Zlithian Empire, was no stranger to the exotic sights of Nexus Prime. But today, something felt different. His massive frame, marked by battle scars, drew curious glances from the delicate humanoid Zlithians that passed him. With their crystalline skin shimmering in hues of blue and gold, the Zlithians were unlike anything he had ever known. But despite his 6 years of loyal service, Robin still felt like an outsider, his origins as a human making him forever separate from the alien nobility he protected. As he stood by, watching the palace's grand halls fill with foreign delegates, his thoughts drifted. His mission had been simple enough: to ensure peace between the human colonies and the Zlithian Empire. But peace came at a price. He had long since abandoned Earth's brutal conflicts, only to find himself bound to an empire full of alien customs and traditions that were as baffling as they were majestic. Suddenly, the sound of the king's voice echoed through the palace halls. King Terok, with his pale gray skin that pulsed with internal light, called for Robin to join him in the throne room. The king's organic, blade-like protrusions extended from his cheekbones, catching the ambient glow of the palace's luminescent walls. Robin moved with precision, his boots thudding softly against the living crystal floor as he made his way toward the throne. When Robin entered the grand throne room, the atmosphere was thick with formality. The king, seated upon his crystalline throne, gestured for Robin to step forward. "Your loyalty has not gone unnoticed," King Terok began, his deep voice resonating across the chamber. "I have decided to reward you with a gift beyond measure." Robin blinked in surprise. A gift? After years of serving the king, this was the first time he had been offered anything beyond orders and duties. What could the king possibly offer him? As if in answer, the massive doors of the throne room swung open. A figure emerged, tall and ethereal, with flowing emerald hair that cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Robin's breath caught in his throat as the woman entered. Her pale green skin seemed to glow from within, her delicate features framed by strands of shimmering golden hair. The princess. "Princess Isara," the king announced, his voice filled with pride. "She shall be your mate." Robin's heart raced as the words sank in. His mind struggled to comprehend what had just been said. Mate? His military training had prepared him for combat, not this. His instincts told him to speak up, to refuse such an absurd offer. He wasn't a prince and certainly not worthy of such a royal gift. "Your Majesty, I'm honored," Robin said, his voice laced with confusion. "But surely she is infertile. Our physicians have confirmed this beyond doubt." His words were a polite attempt to deflect, though he couldn't shake the surreal nature of the situation. The king waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Our physicians are correct, Commander. She cannot bear children, and that is why this union will not threaten the royal bloodline. But I see no harm in granting her the happiness of choosing a mate, and you are my trusted guard. What better choice than you?" Robin's gaze shifted to the princess, her golden eyes locking onto his. There was something there. Hope. Or perhaps even a quiet defiance. She seemed different from the others in the court, not merely accepting her fate, but making her own choice. In that moment, Robin saw more than just a royal woman. He saw someone with strength and resolve, someone whose quiet pain echoed his own. "I do," Robin said, surprising himself with his own words. It was a simple reply, but it sealed his fate. The ceremony was brief, and Robin found himself by Princess Izara's side, though still unsure of the weight of his decision. His world had just turned upside down. A man of war and strategy, suddenly bound by duty to a princess from a distant empire, now forced to navigate an entirely new world of customs, rituals, and expectations. Later, in the private quarters assigned to them, Robin and Izara stood silently on the balcony, overlooking the sprawling crystalline city below. The air was cool, the hum of the palace's energy fields faint in the distance. Izara, her gaze distant, spoke softly. "I know this is unexpected for both of us," she said, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "My father believes this is a gift, but he doesn't understand what it means. I can't bear children, but I've learned to live with it. And yet I have always wondered if there was something more, something different." Robin turned to her, his armor clicking slightly as he adjusted his posture. He had no answers, only his instincts, which told him that something more was happening here than simply following orders. There was more to this union than either of them could understand. "You're different from the others, Jace," she continued, her eyes meeting his. "I see it. You're not just another soldier or another member of my father's court. You think. And that's why I chose you." Robin paused, taking in her words. He wasn't sure how he could be the right choice for her, not when his entire life had been about war and survival. But in this strange new world, perhaps there was more to him than just the battles he had fought. And perhaps there was more to Izara than her status as a royal who couldn't have children. "I'm not sure what you're expecting, Princess," he said quietly, his voice low. "But I will do my best to honor your choice. I won't fail, you." Izara smiled faintly, her golden eyes flickering with something more. Perhaps the start of hope. "Then, let us begin. Together." And so, in that moment, a new chapter began. Not just for Jace Quinn, the human soldier, but for Princess Izara, the alien royal who had been given a new chance at life and love. A union born from duty, but one that might just transcend everything they had been taught to believe about themselves and their worlds. But as they both stepped into the unknown future, they had no idea how much it would change them. And the galaxy. Weeks passed since the unexpected union between Jace Quinn and Princess Izara. The Zlithian court, still in shock over the king's decree, observed them from a distance, their whispers echoing through the glittering halls of the palace. The king, though publicly supportive, had his own reasons for pushing this union forward, reasons that Jace was still far from understanding. Despite the political tensions, life in the royal palace grew somewhat routine. Jace's duty as Izara's protector kept him busy, yet he could not shake the strange feeling that seemed to pulse in the air whenever he and Izara were together. Something was changing between them. What had started as a forced bond was slowly transforming into something deeper, though both of them were reluctant to acknowledge it. Izara, despite her royal poise, seemed increasingly distant at times. Her mind often occupied with thoughts of her kingdom, her family, and the impossible expectations placed upon her. For years, she had accepted her fate, the knowledge that she would never bear an heir. The doctors had been clear. Her biological condition rendered it impossible for her to carry a child. Yet after weeks of unexpected intimacy with Jace, she felt something stirring within her, a sensation that could not be ignored. It started subtly. A missed cycle here, a faint feeling of nausea there. But soon, the signs became undeniable. She was pregnant. The news sent her into a spiral of disbelief and fear, yet at the same time, a small flickering hope began to form within her heart. She had kept it from Jace at first, unsure of how to tell him, but it became increasingly difficult to hide the truth. Her body was changing, her senses heightened, and the glow in her skin, once a soft emerald hue, began to deepen, radiating a new energy. She couldn't escape it any longer. One evening, as they sat together in the private quarters provided by the king, Izara finally spoke. Her voice was soft but firm, her gaze steady as she looked at Jace. "I have something to tell you," she began, her golden eyes meeting his. I'm pregnant." Jace froze, his mind racing. He had never imagined this. The physicians had confirmed, time and time again, that she could never carry a child. The odds were impossible, even for a royal like her. Yet here she was, telling him something that defied everything they had known about biology. "Izara, this can't be true," Jace said, shaking his head in disbelief. "The doctors, they said you were infertile." "I know what they said," she replied, her voice tinged with a quiet frustration. "But I'm carrying your child, Jace. I don't know how, but it's happening." The room seemed to close in around them. Jace could hardly breathe. His mind raced through the possibilities, none of which made sense. Could this really be happening? Could a human and a Zilithian, so biologically different, produce an heir? He reached out, placing his hand gently on her swollen abdomen. "But how?" he whispered, the wonder in his voice mixing with fear. "How is this even possible?" Izara smiled softly, her eyes filled with a quiet resolve. "I don't know, Jace, I really don't. But I know this child. This child is a symbol of something bigger than both of us. It's proof that we, human and Zilithian, can overcome even the greatest of barriers." Jace, still in shock, could not deny the power in her words. As much as his military training had taught him to think logically, he couldn't dismiss what was right in front of him. This child was a miracle, a living testament to the strength and adaptability of both their species. But the news was not just a shock to them. Izara knew the implications of her pregnancy. The Zilithian royal court, still reeling from her marriage to a human, would never accept it. King Tarok, her father, would see this as an abomination, a threat to the purity of his bloodline, and the very foundation of his rule. The next day, King Tarok summoned them both to the throne room, his yellow eyes burning with a mixture of fury and disbelief. As Izara and Jace entered, the tension in the room was palpable. The king's powerful form towered over them, his crystalline protrusions gleaming with an unnatural energy. You dare to defy the laws of our people?" King Tarok's voice echoed, his tone a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You, Izara, who have long been known as infertile, now claim to be pregnant with this human's child." Izara stood tall, her head held high despite the tension in the room. "I did not choose this, Father. But it is happening, and there is nothing that can stop it." Jace, ever the soldier, stepped forward, his armor clicking with each move. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice calm yet firm, "this child may be a threat to your throne, but it also represents the future of our people, human and Zilithian. We may not have the answers yet, but we can find a way." King Tarok's yellow eyes flickered with rage. "You think this hybrid child will save us? It will destroy everything we have built." His voice roared through the throne room, causing the very walls to tremble. "I do not know what the future holds, Father," Izara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But I know this child is not a curse. It is the hope for a future that transcends bloodlines, one that could unite our species in a way we never imagined." Tarok's expression twisted with fury. "You would bring this mongrel into my kingdom? You would risk everything for this impossible child?" His voice trembled with the weight of his anger, but also something deeper, fear. Jace, despite the tension, remained calm. "We are not your enemies, Your Majesty. We only want peace. This child may be the key to achieving that peace." But Tarok was not moved. He turned to his guards, his voice cold and commanding. "Seize them both. They are a threat to the throne and the legacy of the Zilithian Empire." As the guards moved to apprehend them, Jace's combat instincts kicked in. He activated his powered armor, energy fields crackling across its surface. The guards, armed with their crystalline weapons, hesitated, but they were no match for Jace's enhanced combat systems. He moved swiftly, knocking them aside as he positioned himself protectively in front of Izara. "We need to leave," Jace said, his voice low. "Now." Izara, her hand pressed protectively to her abdomen, nodded. "The western passage. It leads to the atmospheric docks," she whispered, her breath quickening. As the guards advanced, Jace and Izara made their escape through the palace's crystalline corridors. The palace, once a symbol of Zlithian power, now became their battleground. And in the midst of it all, a new future was being forged, one that would change the course of the Empire and perhaps the galaxy itself. The stars outside shimmered like endless diamonds against the vast black expanse of space. Jace Quinn and Princess Izara, now fugitives from the royal palace, had found refuge within the rebel stronghold, hidden deep within the remote Black Nebula. The rebel base, constructed from the hulls of long-abandoned starships, was a mixture of human ingenuity and Zlithian technology, blending both species' designs to create a formidable hideout. It was a place where the impossible seemed possible, and the future of both species hung in the balance. Izara, her glowing skin now a deeper shade of emerald, due to the rapid changes occurring within her body, had begun to experience the full weight of her pregnancy. The child she carried, a hybrid of human and Zlithian blood, was growing faster than either of them had expected. But it wasn't just the child's rapid development that caused her concern. It was the growing realization of the power this child would hold, not just for their future, but for the entire galaxy. Jace, his heavy armor now a constant companion, was no longer the soldier he once was. He was something else now. He was her protector, her confidant, and the father of the child she carried. They had found solace in each other's company, but they both knew their peace could not last. They were not just hiding from the king anymore. They were hiding from the Empire itself. "Are you sure it's safe here?" Izara's voice broke through Jace's thoughts as she stood beside him, looking out at the nebula's swirling gases. The colors reflected off her skin, adding an ethereal glow to her already otherworldly beauty. Jace, his posture rigid but his expression softening as he turned to her, nodded. "This base is one of the few places that still eludes royal detection. The Zlithian Empire doesn't know it exists, and the human colonies have been hiding here for years. We're safe, for now." "But for how long?" Izara asked, her golden eyes filled with concern. "My father's fleet is relentless. I can't keep running forever. And what if the child? What if it changes everything?" Jace's heart ached at her words. He didn't have an answer. What if the child did change everything? What if it could? They had no way of knowing what the child's birth would mean for the Zlithian Empire, or for their relationship. "We'll figure it out," Jace said, stepping closer to her. "We'll figure out what happens next. Together." Despite his words, Jace knew that this child, the one they had created together, was a symbol. It wasn't just a pregnancy. It was a challenge to the very foundations of the Empire. His people, the humans, had fought and bled for every inch of land they occupied. Zlithians had always been above them, elevated by their advanced technology, their culture, their purity. But now the child Izara carried was breaking down every barrier that had existed for centuries. Later that day, as they walked through the rebel base, they were greeted by a group of defectors, Zlithian and human soldiers who had united under one cause, to overthrow the current regime. The leader of the group, a tall, wiry human named Captain Mira, approached Jace and Izara. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, yet filled with compassion. "We've heard about your, situation," Mira said, her voice low but steady. "Your child, it could be the symbol that unites us all, if we fight for it." Jace's brow furrowed. "Fight for it? You mean fight for the child?" Mira nodded. "Yes, Commander. This child isn't just the future of your people. It's the future of ours too. Humans and Zlithians have always been divided. But what if this child is the key to ending that divide? What if the child's birth can symbolize unity instead of separation? The Empire, especially King Terok, fears what they don't understand, and they fear this child. Your child. Izara, still processing the weight of what Mira had said, spoke up. But we're not ready to lead a revolution. I don't know what this child will mean. And my father, he won't allow it. Captain Mira smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. The king's power is weakening. He doesn't control the hearts of his people anymore. A revolution is already brewing, Izara. It's just waiting for the right spark. The words hung in the air like a cold breeze, and for the first time since their escape, Jace felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this wasn't all hopeless. Maybe, just maybe, their child could lead a change that would unite their people. But would the galaxy be ready for that kind of change? As the days turned into weeks, the situation grew more tense. The Zilithian royal fleet, led by King Terok himself, was drawing closer. The news had spread throughout the Empire that the princess was pregnant, and that she was with the human she had once been forced to marry. The royal court, once silent, was now in open rebellion against her choice. The Zilithian nobility could not accept a union between humans and Zilithians, especially one that produced a child that defied their biological laws. But as the tension mounted, something unexpected began to happen. The Zilithian people, who had been taught for generations that their culture was superior to all others, began to question their king's decisions. Whispers of a new future began to spread, a future where Zilithians and humans could coexist. A future where the royal bloodline was not the ultimate determining factor in the Empire's power. Jace and Izara, now both leaders in their own right, had become symbols of that new future. But it was a future that came at a cost. They knew that King Terok would not let them go easily. The king's anger was unmatched, and he would stop at nothing to rid the Empire of what he saw as an abomination. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony of the rebel base, looking out at the stars, Izara turned to Jace, her voice filled with both fear and resolve. Jace, I don't know. If we can win this fight, my father will not stop until we are crushed. What if our child's future is destroyed before it even begins? Jace took her hand, his grip firm. We fight for that future, Izara. We fight for them. We fight for a world where no one has to hide. No one has to fear who they love or what they believe. We may not have all the answers, but we know what's right. And we will make sure they know it too. As they stood there together, their child growing inside of Izara, they knew the path ahead would be difficult. There would be battles, losses, and moments where it would seem like all hope was lost. But they also knew that they had something stronger than any weapon, any fleet, or any empire: love. And love, they believed, was something that could change the universe. The stars above the black nebula seemed to stretch on forever, their cold light twinkling through the darkness as Jace Quinn and Princess Izara sat in the command room of the rebel base. The room was filled with a strange, uneasy quiet. The hum of the base's systems the only sound as a small group of rebel leaders gathered around them. There was a tense energy in the air, one that reflected the enormity of what was to come. Izara's golden eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now shone with an intense determination. Her pregnancy, which had once seemed like an impossible anomaly, had become a rallying point. The child she carried, the child of a human and a Zilithian, was no longer just a symbol of defiance. It had become the hope for a new era. The revolution was no longer just a rebellion against the monarchy. It was a movement for unity, for a future where all species could coexist. But despite the hope, the stakes were higher than ever. King Terok's fleet was closing in. His rage at his daughter's defiance had only intensified, and he had issued an ultimatum: return Izara to him or face the full wrath of the Zilithian military. The rebel base was preparing for its final stand, but they knew the odds were slim. The Zilithian Empire was a powerhouse, and no matter how much the people desired change, Terok's forces were nearly unbeatable. We can't win this war through force alone, Jace said, his voice low but unwavering. He sat across from Izara, his eyes locked with hers. But if we can get to the heart of the Empire, If we can show the people the truth about what's happening, what you and I have created, maybe we can change everything. The rebellion needs to strike at the capital and we need to get to Terok before he can destroy us all. Izara nodded, her fingers lightly tracing her swollen abdomen as if reassuring herself of the life growing within her. You're right. But this child, it's not just about us anymore, Jace. It's about the future. If we're going to change this galaxy, we need to give the people the choice. The choice to live freely without fear of oppression or tradition. We need to convince them that a future built on love and unity is possible. The tension in the room was palpable as the rebel leaders listened to their conversation. Captain Mira, the leader of the human rebellion, leaned forward, her expression grim. We have a plan, but it's risky. If we can get inside the capital, we'll need to broadcast a message to every corner of the Empire. The truth must reach everyone. That Isara and Jace's union is not a threat, but a promise for a better future. But the king, he'll stop at nothing to maintain control. Jace clenched his fists, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had been through countless battles, but this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. We can't let fear control us any longer, he said. I've seen what this child can do. It's not just a miracle, it's a sign that change is possible. If we fail, the Empire will remain in the hands of those who fear change. And that's not a world I'm willing to live in. Isara's voice, steady and calm despite the chaos surrounding them, spoke next. We need to end this, Jace. We need to make them see that the old ways are not the only way. I'm not just a princess anymore. I'm the mother of something that can change everything. Jace stood up, his heavy boots making a soft echo against the metallic floor. Then we'll make them see it. We'll fight for it, for our child, for everyone who believes in a better future. As the rebellion prepared for the final assault, Jace and Isara shared one last quiet moment. They stood on the edge of the base's observation deck, overlooking the swirling nebula. The light from the distant stars danced across Isara's glowing skin, casting a peaceful yet sorrowful glow on her face. Despite the weight of their mission, there was a tenderness in their connection that neither could deny. I don't know what the future holds, Isara said softly, her hand resting on Jace's arm. But I know this child will be a beacon. He will be a symbol of everything we fought for. Jace turned to her, his face softening. He will be more than a symbol, Isara. He will be the change we all need. They held each other in silence, knowing that the coming battle would change everything. They had no guarantees, no assurances that they would succeed. But they had each other, and they had their son, their shared hope for a future where love could conquer all. The next day, the final battle began. The rebel forces, human and Zlithian alike, gathered their strength for the assault on the royal capital. Jace and Isara, now more than ever, understood the weight of their responsibility. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a future where people of all species could live without fear, without oppression. As they neared the capital, the air crackled with tension. The royal fleet was waiting for them, its powerful ships looming like dark shadows in space. Jace's mind raced, strategizing their approach, calculating the risks. Isara, standing beside him, had a calmness about her that Jace could not ignore. She was ready. They both were. Are you ready? Jace asked her, his voice steady. Isara smiled, a fierce determination in her eyes. Ready as I'll ever be. They arrived at the heart of the capital where King Terok's forces awaited them. The final confrontation was at hand. The rebel ships collided with the royal fleet in a blaze of energy and fire, the battle unfolding in a chaotic frenzy of flashing lasers and powerful explosions. Amidst the chaos, Jace and Isara made their way toward the heart of the palace where they knew the king was waiting. Inside the royal palace, King Terok awaited them, his towering form standing imposingly in front of his throne. His crystalline protrusions glowed with an eerie light as he watched the couple enter, his face twisted with rage. You dare defy me? He growled, his voice low and threatening. You dare challenge the purity of the Zlithian bloodline? Jace stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. We're not challenging your bloodline, Tarok. We're challenging your tyranny. You've built an empire on fear. It's time to build one on love. Izara's voice rang out, calm yet powerful. Your reign ends here, Father. The future is no longer about blood. It's about what we can build together. I choose love, and I choose my son's future. The king's yellow eyes flared with fury, but something else flickered behind them. Fear. The fear of change. The fear of losing everything he had ever known. But the battle was already won. The truth had been revealed, and no amount of rage could stop it now. The child they carried was not just a symbol of defiance, it was the dawn of a new era. And as the final blow was struck, the Zilithian Empire would never be the same again. A new future, one built on love and unity, was now within their grasp. Jace, Izara, and their child would lead the way.